Welcome to the Madison Miller Podcast Special Edition Show, my 2025 NFL Season Predictions Show. I'm going to go division by division, predict the standings, and do the playoffs and the Super Bowl, give out all the awards, and do some predictions for the season. All right, the AFC East, I have winning the division, 13-4 on the season, the Buffalo Bills. The Bills are always there every year, and it's just going to be penciling them in this division as long as Josh Allen's healthy and the roster around Josh stays intact from a standpoint of the blue chippers on the roster outside of Allen. So usual group still there. James Cook. They had to bring back Gabe Davis. I almost said Curtis Samuel. But Gabe Davis is on the practice squad. Keon Coleman's got to make a leap. Josh Palmer, I think, is a sneaky good addition. Good offensive line. Defense, they had Joey Bosa. Matt Milano's still there. Trey White's back on the team. Coming in second place in the division with 7-10, the Miami Dolphins. I think the Dolphins stink. I do. But they're in an easy division, so they should go 2-2 or better against the Jets and the Patriots. So that's the case for them to be better. And then they have the Colts on their schedule, and they have a lot of other crap teams on their schedule. I mean, you hear everybody say, if Tua's healthy, they're a good team. But he's never always healthy. This team, I think, is very top-heavy. And they don't have a lot of depth. They don't have the depth they used to have, and I think that's going to hurt them. And they have a lot of rookies starting for them as well. So, yeah, top-heavy team around Tua with Tyreek and Jalen Waddle. Darren Waller out of retirement. Devon Akane still there. They acquired Minka Fitzpatrick in the trade with the Steelers. Coming in third, also with the record of 7-10, the New England Patriots. I think the Patriots are going to be better, but I personally think that there's still holes on this roster. Drake May looks like a franchise quarterback. From what we saw last year. A lot of people are high on Travion Henderson. They have two rookies starting on the offensive line, which I don't love. I don't love their receiver depth. Stephon Diggs might be washed. Their defense, I think, has a chance to be one of the better defenses in the league. A lot of big free agent pickups help that. And Christian Gonzalez is still there. Christian Barmore. Marcus Jones. So they have some good players on defense that are keystone guys. But other than those guys, like the rest of the Belichick draft picks were not good. And that's why the Patriots are in this bad spot. It's kind of like what happened with Dave Gettleman and the Giants. Like, Gettleman set them back so long. But I think New England can clean up the Belichick mess so quick because of Drake May. And the problem was that Gettleman drafted Daniel Jones and it didn't work out. So, yeah. And then in the bottom of the AFC East, 5-12 overall, the New York Jets. The Jets are going to be bad. They're going to be in the conversation for Arch Manning and Cade Klubnik and Drew Aller and Ness Meyer from LSU. So, Justin Fields to me just isn't the answer. He's just not. Breece Hall's not what people think he is. Elijah Vera Tucker's going to be out for the season, it looks like, with this injury. On on the offensive line. Like, part of me's tempted to drop him a win because of that injury. Because that's how good Elijah Vera Tucker is. But I'm just going to keep it as is. And of course, they have the rookie Armand Membo starting at tackle. And there's people that think that he didn't have the best training camp. I mean, Olu Fashanu should be better in year 2 in the line. Their defense isn't bad. I mean, their pass rush has some guys. Obviously, Sauce Gardner in the secondary. The AFC North. In first place, I have with the record of 12-5, the Baltimore Ravens. I don't see a world where the Ravens lose the division. Like, this is, I think, the best team, arguably, that Lamar's had around him. Looks like they hit on Zay Flowers. I still think that there needs to be more depth at wide receiver behind Flowers. Rashad Bateman really hasn't panned out. DeAndre Hopkins is old. So that's the case against them. Derrick Henry's a year older, but he's still really good behind that offensive line. Ronnie Stanley needs to... And then defensively, I think they're stacked. Their secondary is one of the best ones in the league. They get Jair Alexander from Green Bay. Their pass rush is good. So I am very high on the Baltimore Ravens this year. In second place, I have, with a record of 9-8, the Cincinnati Bengals. Cincinnati, I think, is kind of like the better version of the Dolphins. They are a very top-heavy team with a lot of talent, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are paid. I have questions on about their offensive line. Trey Hendrickson was taken care of. But the rest of their defense, not a lot to be desired. And then Evan McPherson has to have a better year, the kicker. Third place with a record of 9-8, the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers, to me, I cannot pick them to have a losing record until I see it, or unless if there's some big injuries. Aaron Rodgers comes in and replaces Russell Wilson. He'll be better than Russell Wilson was last year, and he'll be better than Justin Fields was last year, and he'll be better than both those guys this year since he's on a better team and those two are on bad teams. The offensive tools for Rodgers are not great. The offensive line's good. I mean, Jaylen Warren's got to be good. I mean, Pat Fryermuth's probably their best skill position guy, other than DK Metcalf, obviously, and they trade away George Pickens. Defensively, it's where their best player resides, TJ Watt. Cam Hayward's still there. Alex Highsmith, Patrick Queen, they're stacked defensively, and that's why they should be in a lot of games. And at the cellarless division, I have with the record of a pathetic 3-14, the Cleveland Browns. I just think this team's a joke. Joe Flacco is their starting quarterback. And then it's Dylan Gabriel and Shader Sanders. The question is, will we see any of those rookies, let alone Sanders, start a game this year? I'm going to say more likely than not, if not both may start games. Their best skilled guy is Jerry Jeudy, who I think is trade bait this year. David Njoku's still there. Maybe he's trade bait also. Myles Garrett's their best player. He's still around. He almost got traded. Denzel Ward's still there. But this is a blow it up and rebuild team. the AFC South, coming in first place, I have the record of 10-7, the Houston Texans. Houston, I mean, people compare them to Baltimore in a sense of it's their division for years to come. I felt that way a year ago. Now, not so much, because I don't think the depth on the roster is as good as it's perceived. C.J. Stroud has to be better than he was last year. No ifs, ands, or buts. Nick Chubb is going to be their starting running back. Joe Mixon might miss the whole season. Their offensive line is still not great, in my opinion. A lot of journeymen. Their defense is the strength of their team. Obviously, Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Derek Stingley. But they're loaded on that side of the ball. Coming in second place in the division with the record of 9-8, the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm higher on the Jaguars than most this year. I like Liam Cohen, their new coach, who was the Buccaneers' offensive coordinator. The Jags want him so bad. And it came out that the Bucs weren't gonna let him go, or that he wanted to stay with the Bucs, and then ultimately he left the Bucs and ended up with the Jags. Big story of this team for the offseason, they trade up to get Travis Hunter in the draft. Take advantage of tanking Browns. Some people might compare them trading up for Travis Hunter to the Giants taking Barkley at 2 or the Falcons taking Pitts at 4. No. 2 different things. 3 different things. Trevor Lawrence is not a washed-up quarterback. He's a young quarterback who I think has been in a rough situation. People are calling him a bust and not up to what he was supposed to be. The latter part of that is correct. He's not a bust, but he also has not lived up to the hype. That's just factual. But maybe that could change with the new coach. They have talent on the offensive line. Hunter and BTJ are great at receiver. Good running back combo. Their defense is solid. Josh Hines Allen, Devin Lloyd, Trayvon Walker. Coming in third in the division with the record of 7-10. The Tennessee Titans. Yes. I think the Titans will surprise some people this year and finish with 7 wins. Cam Ward comes in at quarterback. First overall pick. Expectations. But the question I have with the Titans is their coach and whether he's the right guy or not. Obviously, Matt Eberflus was not the right guy. He got fired. Maybe it's the same for Brian Callahan. We'll find out if he was a product of the Bengals and Joe Burrow or if he can actually coach. But I don't hate this Titans roster. I was tempted to pick them a little bit better than 7-10. Tony Pollard's good. Calvin Ridley's good. Tyler Lockett they get from Seattle. They have a good offensive line. Pass rush isn't terrible. Jeffrey Simmons is an awesome player. And the secondary isn't terrible. This team, I think it's going to be fun to watch. And in the cellar, with the record of 5-12, the Indianapolis Colts. I think this team is a dumpster fire blow-up waiting to happen. Daniel Jones is their starting quarterback over Anthony Richardson. But to be fair, they do have some talent. Jonathan Taylor, a good offensive line. They picked Tyler Warren at tight end in the draft. The receivers I'm not in love with. Michael Pittman Jr. to me is more of a WR2 than a WR1. He has to prove it to me. Defensively, they have some guys, Grover Stewart and DeForest Buckner. But because of the quarterback situation, and we know what Daniel Jones is, he doesn't have a healthy Saquon Barkley on this team. They're trash, the Colts. Shane Steichen's going to be a contender for first coach fired. It's going to be him, and if the Dolphins get off to a bad start, Mike McDaniel and maybe Brian Callahan if Tennessee's worse than we think. Or Brian Daboll if the Giants are awful. The AFC West, I have winning the division with the record of 12-5, the Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City's still Kansas City as far as I'm concerned. They took Josh Simmons in the draft to improve their offensive line. Patrick Mahomes is still Patrick Mahomes. I think Travis Kelce's washed. I think he's more focused on his girl or his fiance than on the football field. There's a reason his touchdown total is only 4.5. Xavier Worthy, I think, is going to be big time for them. But their receivers, to me, need to show more. Defensively, Chris Jones is still there in the pass rush. Secondary, Trent McDuffie's really good. And we talked about Butker in the regular show today and how he isn't the same. Coming in second, I have with the record of 11-6. The Denver Broncos. I think the Broncos are going to be good. And I think that there's a chance they win this division. Bo Nix in year 2, you expect him to make a little bit of a jump, if not a big jump. Very good offensive line. I'm not a J.K. Dobbins fan. He always gets hurt. And I call him Just Kidding Dobbins because the dude's always hurt. I know it sounds offensive, but the dude's always hurt. Everyone thought he was going to be this Saquon Barkley, Jahmyr Gibbs, name any great running back, McCaffrey on the Ravens. Nope. But yeah, R.J. Harvey, they better hit on him, Denver. They bring in Evan Ingram from the Jaguars. And then defensively, they bring in some guys in free agency. Talanoa Hufanga. Zach Allen. John Franklin Myers. But yeah, they have a loaded defense. Pat Surtain's a top 3 corner in the league. Coming in third, I have at the record of 9-8, the Los Angeles Chargers. I'm not as high on the Chargers as other people are. They're in a hard division. And Rashawn Slater's out for the season with the torn ACL, so that hurts. Justin Herbert, to me, just doesn't have the arsenal that he is perceived to have. Omarion Hampton better be good. Keenan Allen's not the same guy anymore. Quentin Johnson looked like a bust in his first year. Last year, he was a little better, but this is a huge year for him. Ladd McConkey proved to be something. And defensively, they still have some talent. Khalil Mack, Denzel Perryman, Derwin James. And in the cellar with the record of 7-10, the Las Vegas Raiders. Not in love with this Raiders team, although I do think they'll be better. And I mean not in love in terms of they might actually make the playoffs, because I know people have them in. I mean, I'm sure there's people that have all 4 AFC West teams in the postseason. So Geno Smith comes in at quarterback. He's an upgrade, obviously. Pete Carroll's an upgrade at head coach over Antonio Pierce. Ashton Genty better be good for picking that guy as high as they did. Brock Bowers, obviously, is a stud at tight end. Offensive line, I don't love. Don't love the receivers. Pass rush is okay. I mean, Max Crosby's their best guy. And they added some guys on defense in the offseason as well. All right, now the NFC. We'll start with the East. First place, the record of 12-5. The Philadelphia Eagles, your reigning Super Bowl champions. The Eagles have the best roster from top to bottom in the NFL. Jalen Hurts gets better every year. And it seems like Saquon Barkley was the pickup of last offseason. Great skill guys, other than Barkley too. Fantastic goal line. Pass rush is great. Secondary, I think, is probably the weak spot of their team. And even their linebackers are good. So, and heck, you can make a case that the secondary is not... Like, if that's someone else's secondary, that's better than a lot of teams' secondary. But, yeah. It's gonna be an interesting year for the Birds to see if they can defend the Super Bowl champ. And obviously, this would be the first NFC East repeat winner in a long time, too. Coming in second with the record of 9-8, the Washington Commanders. I think the Commanders are going to take a step back. I still think they're going to be a good team, but they're not as good. They're an old team. But Jaden Daniels is a star at quarterback. But yeah, this would be like a 2021 All-Star team. Terry McLaurin, Austin Eckler, Deebo Samuel, Laramie Tunsil, Von Miller, Bobby Wagner, Daron Payne, Marshawn Lattimore. There's a lot of names on this team, but the production, all those guys I brought up, and Javon Kinlaw too, I feel like their best days are behind them. Like all those guys I brought up other than Daniels, obviously, because his best days are ahead of him, and he had a phenomenal rookie year last year. Coming in third with the record of 6-11, the Dallas Cowboys. If Micah Parsons was still on this team, I think that the Cowboys, I would have probably picked them 2 wins or 3 wins better. Because that's how impactful Parsons was to that team. And the funny thing is when I did my position player rankings for each position, Parsons was still a Cowboy, and I think I had him number 1 for outside linebacker. So meanwhile, questions at running back. Javonte Williams hasn't shown something since his rookie year in Denver. CD and Pickens is a good duo at receiver. Ferguson's a good tight end. Defensively, they're not as good, obviously, without Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence. They extended Trayvon Diggs today. Kenneth Murray was a bust on the Chargers. Dante Fowler's bounced around. Kenny Clark they got in the Parsons trade. He'll be good for them. And if they're bad, maybe they trade him again. Deron Bland just got paid. And their special teams are good. And coming in fourth in the division, also at 6-11, I have the New York Giants. This is like the rare situation where I think a team is going to improve, but it won't show results-wise on the field. They have a very hard schedule. They did have the hardest schedule in the league before the Parsons trade. Now I think the Bears have the hardest schedule, or Minnesota, because obviously the NFC North schedules get harder with Parsons, but their schedule's not as hard because they have 2 more winnable games on their schedule that they probably didn't have a month ago. But anyway, Russell Wilson is going to be starting for them at quarterback. Jackson Dart actually is their QB too. Now the question is, when does he come in? I like Tyron Tracy and Cam Scatabo at running back. Devin Singletary's washed. Malik Neighbors is good at receiver. Andrew Thomas is back on the O-line. Their pass rush is one of the best in football. Bobby Okerke and Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, Abdul Carter, obviously. And then their secondary, they added Javon Holland from the Dolphins and Paulson Abito from New Orleans. And then they get their kicker back, Graham Gano, who was hurt last year. So who knows? Like, if they were in the AFC East, I'd be tempted to pick the Giants in second place or third. Like, if you replace them with New England. I'd put them probably right there at the Dolphins. But the reason why the Dolphins have more wins is because easier schedule. And they played the Patriots and the Jets 4 times combined, and the Colts and a bunch of other crap teams. All right, the NFC North, I have winning division with the record of 12-5, the Green Bay Packers. The Micah Parsons trade sealed the deal for me about who I was picking to win this division. It was probably going to be Detroit if not for the trade. I think Green Bay should be favored in this division now with Parsons. I think Parsons is going to be the impact guy of the year, just like Barkley was last year. So, yes, they are very slight favorites. I'm going to go over the division odds later in the show. Good offensive line for Green Bay. Jordan Love's healthy. Josh Jacobs had a great year last year running the ball. Their receivers, I think, are overrated of what they had, but if Matthew Golden hits, like I think he will, that's a big deal. And the tight ends are good too. Pass rush is among the best in the league now with Parsons there, with Rashawn Gary. Their secondary isn't bad. Xavier McKinney and some of those guys. Coming in second with the record of 11-6, the Detroit Lions. I think Detroit takes a step back in the win-loss department, but they're still a playoff team. Now the question is, like, how will Jared Goff look without Ben Johnson? I think he'll be fine because of the talent. You know, Jahmyr Gibbs, who I believe I had RB1. Or no, I had him the second best running back in the league behind Saquon Barkley. Or no, I had him 4. Ahead of, behind Barkley, Henry, and McCaffrey. Sam Laporte is good at tight end. Offensive line got worse because Frank Ragnow retired. They have a rookie starting at one of the guard spots. But the bookends are still good. Receivers are outstanding, led by Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, obviously. Defensively, they get Aiden Hutchinson back from injury, which is a big deal. Their secondary actually is sneaky good. And their special teams are outstanding, too. Coming in third in the division, I was going back and forth with these two, to be honest with you. But it came down to one thing. In third place with a record of 9-8, I have the Minnesota Vikings. It came down to coaching. The proven against the unproven. I know the quarterbacks are unproven. Like, yesterday I had the Bears there. Now it went back to the Vikings. I originally had the Vikings, then I had the Bears, and I put the Vikings back in. Like, I was so undecided in the third place spot in the division. But I decided to go with the proven commodity roster and coaching staff-wise in Minnesota in spite of J.J. McCarthy and the unknown. But yeah, their offense is loaded, and I think that helps a young quarterback like him. And I believe that the offensive line is really good as well. Yeah, so you have Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson, but obviously Addison's suspended, so they trade for Adam Thielen from Carolina, who was a Viking and was a very good Viking. And I think that matters to them. And then their defense is really good. They bring in Jonathan Allen from Washington. Jonathan Grenard's a good player. Andrew Van Ginkel's really good. Harrison Smith's a player on the decline, but he still produces. And in the cellar of the division with the record of 8-9, I have the Chicago Bears. If they were in again, it's kind of like the Giants situation a little bit, although better because of their talent is better. Could be a second place team in any other division other than the AFC West, probably. So Caleb Williams year 2 has to be better. DeAndre Swift, a lot of weapons, good offensive line. Colston Loveland was a pick in the draft. And their defense, I think, has improved. But, again, it's kind of a lot of big names that don't produce anymore, like Kevin Byard and Grady Jarrett. Montez Sweat was a good pickup in the trade a while ago. The secondary's good as well. The NFC South coming in first place with the record of 11-6, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This Bucs team, I think, gets disrespected year in and year out, and I think they finally earned that respect. Chris Godwin out to start the year, probably. Emeka Egbuka, a lot of people are high on. Tristan Wirfs is going to miss the start of the year as well, albeit a good offensive line there too. Baker Mayfield just continues to silence the doubters. You could argue at this point the Browns should have never gotten rid of him. There's an alternate universe where he's still on the Browns and Tampa's rebuilding and kind of like Tennessee right now. And Bucky Irving's now their RB1 over Rachaad White. Their defense is still really good. Kalijah Kancey, Vita Vea, Hassan Reddick, Levante Davis, Antoine Winfield. Coming in second with the record of 7-10, the Carolina Panthers. I like this Carolina team more than most, albeit I have them with 7 wins. If they kept Adam Thielen media, I would have had them at 8 and 9. But they're really banking on Hunter Renfrow, who they got from Vegas, and Xavier Legette, who was their first-round pick last year, and then their first-round pick this year, Teodoro McMillan, is awesome as well. Chuba Hubbard at running back. Bryce Young really needs to make a year 3 jump. It's funny because at this time, 11 months ago, we were talking about Bryce Young being this bust, and now we're talking about him in a different and opposite way. And defensively, they still have Derek Brown. They have some other guys. Not in love with their secondary, though. Third place with the record of 7-10, the Atlanta Falcons. To me, what this comes down to is their quarterback, Michael Penix Jr., whether he's good or not. He showed some flashes last year after he came in for Kirk Cousins. I think outside of Drake London and Kyle Pitts, the skill position group is weak. And obviously Bijan as well should be mentioned. Caleb McGarry out for the year is a big loss for Atlanta. And then on defense, they drafted a few guys in their secondary to help that. And in the cellar, I have the record of 3-14, the New Orleans Saints. Like the Browns, I think the Saints are going to be a joke. They're going to be playing for Arch Manning and all these quarterbacks. Unlike the Browns, who will probably take the Ohio State wide receiver or somebody else. They'll probably trade out a number 1 if they end up with number 1, because I don't think they're going to pick Archer on whoever the number 1 overall pick is going to be. Their O-line is good. skill position-wise, I think is weak outside of Chris Olave, and then Alvin Kamara is just not the same guy anymore. Spencer Rattler's their quarterback. I mean, they do have a new coach in Kellen Moore. I don't love the Saints' defense as well. NFC West, I have winning the division with the record of 11-6, the San Francisco 49ers. I think this team's back to being a contender in the NFC after a down year last year. Brock Purdy, I think, has showed us that he's a good quarterback in this league. The wide receiver depth is not great right now with Brandon Ayuk out, and Juwan Jennings might miss week 1 as well. And then their offensive line isn't as good, although Trent Williams is the best tackle in the game. George Kittle, I think, is somebody that produces when he's healthy, obviously. Rather have him than Travis Kelce at this point. And then we talked about McCaffrey and his health a lot on this show. And Kyle Juszczyk, the fullback, is still there, and they like playing around with him in that offense. Defensively, a lot of their guys are gone from the past, but Robert Saleh is now their DC, so I think that should help them big time. Second, with a record of 10-7, the Los Angeles Rams. I like this Rams team a lot. There's people picking them to miss the playoffs. They're finishing last because of the uncertain health with Matt Stafford. But Sean McVay's the coach, and he's the best coach in football, if not the second best coach. They get Devontae Adams to replace Cooper Kupp. I don't know if that's a down or an upgrade or a downgrade. A lot of people said upgrade, but I'm not convinced. I feel like that's even. Cooper Kupp was really good for them last year. I know Adams stunk on the Raiders and the Jets with the bad quarterbacks. So this should be better. Offensive line's good. Their defense is really good. Kobe Turner, Byron Young. Very good pass rush. And then in third division with the record of 8-9, I have the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle could be better than this, but they could also be worse than this. A lot of this is based on Sam Darnold, obviously. Cooper Kupp comes over from the Rams. They lose Tyler Lockett and DJ Metcalf. Jackson Smith-Njigba is going to make a jump again. Kenneth Walker, good running back. Offensive line, I have questions. I mean, their defense is going to be good. They have Leonard Williams and DeMarcus Lawrence on there. Good secondary as well. And in the cellar, 7-10, the Arizona Cardinals. I don't love this Cards team at all. Kyler Murray's an inconsistent quarterback. Marvin Harrison needs to be better as a wide receiver. Trey McBride is probably their best skill guy right now. Their O-line's good. And even their D-line is good too. Secondary has some guys that have other questions. So there you have it for the standings. And now the playoffs. We'll start at the wild card round. So we have the 7th seed in the AFC, the Jacksonville Jaguars, and your 2 seed in the AFC, the Baltimore Ravens. Ravens better roster. Good season for the Jaguars comes to an end. So I'm going to go with the Ravens over the Jaguars. So AFC 3 seed Kansas City Chiefs against the AFC 6 seed Cincinnati Bengals. Playoff rematch from the past. Burrow, Mahomes. Mahomes gets it done again. Bengals defense isn't as good. So Chiefs over the Bengals. And then your AFC 4 seed Houston Texans host the AFC 5 seed the Denver Broncos. This is where I'm calling for a seeding upset. Denver and Bo Nix ready to take that step. Their defense is outstanding. And I think that pass rush gets the better end of Houston's offensive line, so I'm going to go with the Broncos. The NFC. 2-seed Philadelphia Eagles hosting the 7-seed Minnesota Vikings. Vikings return to the postseason. It was between them and the Bears for the final playoff spot, and Washington too. But the infrastructure of Minnesota is why I picked them. Washington has an aging roster, and then there's too much unknown with the Bears. So I decided to go with the foundation team in the Vikings. But this is where I think the rookie quarterback's going to have the jitters, and the Eagles' experience will trump it. So I'm going to go with the Eagles over the Vikings. Your NFC 6 seed Los Angeles Rams against the NFC 3 seed San Francisco 49ers. Great in-division matchup for the wild card round. Two really good teams, but at this point I think the Rams are going to be healthy with Stafford. McVay has beaten Shanahan in the playoffs before. I think it'll happen again. There's going to be some Ram fans in the building in Santa Clara. So I'm going to go with the Rams over the 49ers. I think that the Rams front on defense will get the better end of the Niners offensive line, which isn't as good as it used to be. And then your NFC 4 seed Tampa Bay Buccaneers hosting the NFC 5 seed Detroit Lions. Playoff rematch from a few years ago, a game where the Bucs could have won. And Detroit pulled it out of their asses, and then Detroit went and lost to the Niners the next weekend. That was 2 years ago. I think the opposite happens. I think Tampa gets over the hump, and they make the second round for the second time in 3 years. So I'm going to go with the Buccaneers over the Lions. And plus, I just think Detroit has lost so many guys on their offensive line and throughout the roster. And then Tampa, I just think, is better than giving credit for. Again, this is like a defense pick. Divisional round. AFC 1 seed Buffalo Bills hosting the AFC 5 seed Denver Broncos. Same matchup as the wild card round last year. I think it'll be the same result. Josh Allen and company, too much for the Broncos to handle. So the Bills over the Broncos. AFC 2 seed Baltimore Ravens hosting the AFC 3 seed Kansas City Chiefs. And here I have Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens finally getting over the hump against the Chiefs. They almost did it 2 years ago in the AFC title game. But now I think that with home field, just a better roster period than the Chiefs at this point. And they came so close last year. So I'm going with the Ravens over the Chiefs. Seeding upset. Or not seeding upset. I don't think the Chiefs would be favored in that game either. But it would have been an upset if KC was home. Okay, so NFC 1 seed Green Bay Packers hosting the NFC 6 seed Los Angeles Rams. This was a playoff matchup when Rodgers was still on Green Bay, if I'm not mistaken. But I think the Rams, it might have been year 1 of Stafford. And then the Rams beat them, and then they went and beat the Bucs, and then they went and beat the 49ers. So that was the 2022 NFL season. So, did I get that correct? No, so that was the year the Giants were good. So then it was 2021 when the 2021 season when the Rams won the Super Bowl. Let's see. Oh, the Rams beat Arizona, and then San Fran beat Green Bay. For some reason, I thought that the Rams beat Green Bay and Rodgers in the postseason. Maybe that was with Jared Goff. But yeah, why do I feel like those two teams met in the postseason and Green Bay lost? But anyway, good matchup. Micah Parsons, like I said earlier, I think is going to be the impact player of this season that moved teams like Saquon last year. So I'm going to go with the Green Bay Packers over the Los Angeles Rams, and I think Jordan Love, this is his coming out party this season. And then your NFC 2 seed Philadelphia Eagles hosting the NFC 4 seed Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Bucs have given the Eagles trouble in the past, but ultimately here, I think the Eagles finally beat the Bucs. Home field advantage, Barkley, the whole deal. So I'm going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then AFC Championship, I have the 1 seed Buffalo Bills hosting the 2 seed Baltimore Ravens, divisional round rematch from last year. Great game, of course, with those two quarterbacks and rosters going at it, those two coaches. But I think the Ravens have a coaching advantage and, quite frankly, a roster advantage over the Bills. But the Bills do have a quarterback advantage, but the slightest of slights. But I think Lamar Jackson and company get it done. They were a Mark Andrews drop away, or a catch away, not drop away from probably beating the Bills, and maybe they're in the Super Bowl instead of the Chiefs. So I think the Ravens get it done on the road, probably as a 3-point underdog to get it done. And then your NFC 1 seed Green Bay Packers hosting the NFC 2 seed Philadelphia Eagles in the NFC title game. Playoff rematch from last year. This was wild card round. Yeah, wild card round, because the Rams beat the Vikings in the wild card round, and the Rams came close to beating the Eagles. But this game's in Lambeau in the cold weather. I know the Eagles are built for cold weather too. This feels like low-scoring defense. Micah Parsons has always had success against the Eagles. He knows the Eagles inside and out. And I think that Green Bay goes to their first Super Bowl since the Aaron Rodgers days and since the 2010 season. So their first Super Bowl in 15 years. So my Super Bowl, I have your NFC 1 seed Green Bay Packers against the AFC 2 seed Baltimore Ravens. I think that is a fabulous game. Two really good quarterbacks, two great coaches, two great rosters. Everything about these two teams are awesome. And to me, the difference here is the Ravens have better skill guys than Green Bay. And I know both teams have the nasty running backs and Josh Jacobs and Derrick Henry. Both teams have good coaches. Jim Harbaugh has been in this spot before. Neither is Matt LaFleur. But I know neither quarterback has been in this spot either. But the Ravens, I just think, are a deeper team. They have a better offensive line. Pass rush, I think, is even. Like I said, they have better skill guys with Mark Andrews, and I think Zay Flowers is more established than any receiver on the Packers. I know Golden will be good, I believe. And then and the Packers do have solid tight ends, but the Ravens have really good tight ends as well. So I'm going to pick the Baltimore Ravens to win Super Bowl 60 in Santa Clara, California. Super Bowl MVP, Lamar Jackson. I just think that he's going to have his moment in the big spotlight. All right. Regular season awards. MVP, Josh Allen, Buffalo Bills. I have the Bills as the 1 seed, so that's that. 13-4 best record, so Josh Allen wins MVP for the second year in a row. Offensive Player of the Year, I'm going with Jahmyr Gibbs of the Detroit Lions. I think he's an outstanding player, and he's going to get a ton of touchdowns, and he might have a 2,000-plus yard season ahead of him. Defensive Player of the Year, Micah Parsons. I've been hyping Micah Parsons up all podcasts. He's going to be, like I said, the impact player of the year that changes teams like Barkley last year. Offensive Rookie of the Year, I'm going with Matthew Golden of the Green Bay Packers. I talked about him earlier. I think he's going to have an impact on that team. Defensive Rookie of the Year, I'm going to go with Abdul Carter as the first player I'm picking from a team I have with a losing record. I just think that this guy is a safe bet. And a lot of people compare him to Micah Parsons and TJ Watt and all these guys. So the Giants look like they have themselves a franchise player on the defensive side of the ball for the first time. Oh, I should say, not necessarily on the defensive side of the ball, because you could argue about Dexter Lawrence, but this guy's going to have a bigger impact than Dexter Lawrence because of the position. But I should say franchise edge rusher for the first time since Strahan. And, Tuck was a DT, but, their first franchise DE probably since, Jason Pierre-Paul. That's another good one. But yeah, since Strahan and JPP. Coach, I'm going with Liam Cohen of the Jaguars. I have them in the postseason after the year they had last year, trading up for Travis Hunter. I think is gonna impact them both sides of the ball. New coach, young coach that actually knows what he's doing. Has a good reputation. So I'm going to go with Liam Cohen. Assistant Coach of the Year is a new award. I'm going to go with Vance Joseph of the Broncos. I just think that defense is going to be a unit that will not show vulnerabilities. And the Broncos have no weak spots on their defense at all. Comeback Player of the Year, it's obvious. It's Aiden Hutchinson of the Detroit Lions. I said on the podcast last year that the Detroit Lions weren't going to go to the Super Bowl because of the loss of Aiden Hutchinson. And I stuck with that the rest of the season. And I said that the Eagles were going to go to the Super Bowl instead of them, and I ended up being right. So, yeah, that's an obvious choice for Comeback Player of the Year. I think he's going to come back and be awesome. Miscellaneous bold predictions of the season. I'm going to do team bold predictions on the regular show tomorrow. Super Bowl 60 halftime show. I'm going with the singer who's the favorite right now at plus 150 on BetMGM. It's Miss Taylor Swift, the future wife of Travis Kelce. I think it's obvious that it's going to be her. And I also wouldn't be surprised if she had special guests on stage with her, like Chris Stapleton, from a country standpoint. I think it's going to be a little bit of everything. Taylor Swift's going to be the headliner. Chris Stapleton, I think, is going to be involved. I wouldn't be surprised if Morgan Wallen's involved. I wouldn't be surprised if Bruno Mars is involved again. I wouldn't be surprised if Lady Gaga's involved again. Although Lady Gaga would be absolutely special, but I don't see her being the main headliner because she was the main headliner 9 years ago in the Super Bowl. And I think she should have performed in Super Bowl 50 halftime show, but instead she did the national anthem. And even if you're thinking older, old school, Elton John wouldn't stun me, Billy Joel wouldn't stun me, Aerosmith won't stun me. I'd be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if it was anybody. Miley Cyrus has to be mentioned because she'd be an outstanding halftime show performer. I thought the Kendrick Lamar halftime show was not good last year. And I think another special performance would be Pink. She's never had it, and she is one of the best singers of her era. And I just think that she's a little disrespected in a way, and it's not fair. I think she belongs on the Super Bowl stage. She's fabulous. So, Pink would not surprise me. Another bold prediction of the season, no ties. hopefully. I think ties suck. To me, a tie is a loss. The team I root for had a tie a few years ago, and ultimately it did them good because they made the postseason, but I just don't like ties, and ties could cost teams playoff spots and whatnot, so I do not think we will have a tie. Within the first 3 weeks, if not first 2 weeks, there will be a big upset that knocks everyone and their mother out of their survivor pools. Last year, obviously, it was Cincinnati losing at home to New England. And then the following week, the Raiders went out and beat the Ravens outright in Baltimore. So we've seen it happen. I think it will happen again. I just don't know where. Maybe the Giants beat Washington in week 1. I think the Giants are a likely team to do it. And it's funny that the Patriots, of all teams, were the team that did it last year because they ended up being terrible and were probably the worst team in the NFL last year, other than the Giants and Tennessee. And Cleveland, duh. And obviously Tennessee's a candidate to do it again this year. But there's several candidates that could be the knockout pool spoiler. Another miscellaneous bold prediction is that there will be more than 15 overtime games. I just think there's going to be a lot of close games this year. It's funny that I have no ties, but more than 15 overtime games. That's a crazy prediction, but might as well go big or go bold. There's a couple others I can think of. I'm going to say that the new red zone will not be a success because red zone won't be the same without it being commercial free. So that's really it for the miscellaneous predictions. I'm going to do team bold predictions on the podcast tomorrow, like I said. Hope you guys enjoyed the prediction show, and I look forward to looking back at this after the season.